Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with great artist, Bad Day. Oh, we all have our bad days, don't we? And so do the biggest and the best. Well, yes, the only difference is that their bad days get advertised and promoted as good days. But this one is really fun. I've always enjoyed this particular example of awfulness. It's Pierre Boulez and the Chicago Symphony doing Strauss's Also Sprach Zarathurstra. Now, the history of this recording, the way DG has handled it, has been very, very interesting. First of all, look at the cover. Here we have this sort of Android Stokowski Fantasia type glitz thing. And there is no conductor who is less suitable to that kind of approach than Pierre Boulez. Absolutely not. I mean, my goodness, who was, known as a cool, intellectual, serious guy. Oh, yeah. But, he's doing Richard Strauss, which he did. I mean, is this his only Strauss recording? He did very little Strauss. Very, very little Strauss. And originally, this was coupled with Mahler's Totenfeier, which was the symphonic poem first version of the Second Symphony, the much inferior version of the first movement of the Second Symphony, which Mahler improved immeasurably. And that was a snooze fest as well. It was a real droopy performance of that, 25 minutes of non-happening. And this is 33 minutes of non-happening. And now all 33 non-happening minutes are on a single disc. They took off Totenfeier and they reattached it in the big Boulez box to Mahler's First Symphony, so that, they had all the Mahler in one place. That makes perfect sense. But that leaves this as a sort of hanging chad, a single sad example of Boulez conducting Richard Strauss. Now, it was probably a given, I would say, that this would be the work he chose. I can't see him, indulging in the voluminous excesses of Ein Heldenleben, for example, or God forbid, an Alpine Symphony, or something like that. That just isn't Boulez. Death and Transfiguration, forget it. I mean, Boulez was the least transcendental, transfigured person you'd ever want to see on the podium. There wasn't anything spiritual in the way he played music, which is fine with me, by the way, because I have no spirituality either. But I mean, we're talking about suitability of artist to repertoire. Then you've got Till Eulenspiegel and Don Quixote, which are fantastic works, absolutely amazing works, except that they need a sense of humor. And there is no evidence at all whatsoever anywhere in his discography that Boulez had anything resembling a sense of humor. It's one of the problems with his Mahler recordings, actually, because he just doesn't get the fun part. Fun and Boulez are not two words that usually go together, and laughter and Boulez do not normally go together. Then you've got pieces like Don Juan. Well, is there any conductor in the universe who had less sex appeal than Pierre Boulez, who was not going to do something that was awash with sensuality? I mean, really. I mean, he did do the poem of ecstasy, actually, just around the same time as this. And that wasn't that is terrible, because you can probe the poem of ecstasy and claim that you're doing it from the sort of avant-garde, harmonic evisceration perspective. And so he sort of got away with it a little bit. I mean, not as great as the big, ecstatic, crazy, fun performances. But, there's something to be said for that approach. In Strauss, there is nothing to be said for that approach, especially not in his sexy pieces. So what does that leave? It leaves, essentially, Also Sprach Zarathurstra. And it's Nietzsche. It's philosophical. It's abstract. It allows you to take a coldly analytical, intellectual approach, right? Wrong! It doesn't. It really doesn't at all. It's got that sloppy Viennese waltz. It's got the passionate the harp glissandos going like that. Oh my goodness! There's so much you could do. There is a fugue of science, the scientific fugue, but it's just going like that. So there is that. But basically, unless you're doing one of those probe the inner voice things, or seeking to lighten up and clarify the textures, which is never a good idea with Strauss, because if he wanted them light and clarified, that's what he would have written. He did say play it like Mendelssohn's fairy music, but I mean, who was he kidding? That was Electra he was talking about, by the way. So no, Boulez and Strauss were never going to be a good mix. And the result of all of this folderol in Also Sprach, Zarathurstra is a performance which is just boring. Absolutely boring, lacking in glamour, lacking in fun. I mean, part of the point of Strauss taking on Nietzsche was the same. It was the same concept as his taking on Salome. He wanted to shock people. He wanted to create a scandal. He wasn't interested in portraying Nietzsche in sound. He really was. You can't. I mean, what are you supposed to do, right? I mean, he does what the music says it does, of course, and he does it quite well. But essentially, the idea was to simply write a big, huge, yummy, juicy, glitzy thing and attach Nietzsche's name to it so that people would have a nervous breakdown when they heard it back in the day. Nowadays, we look at it because most people don't read Nietzsche, first of all, and don't care about him if they do read Nietzsche. You look at it and you just go, okay, the title's difficult to pronounce. What is he talking about? But it's vintage Strauss. Strauss of Ein Heldenleben, Till Eulenspiegel, Don Juan, Don Quixote. And unless you have an affinity for those, you are not going to have an affinity for this. You're going to deliver a snooze fest, which is exactly what Boulez gives us. A great artist with a singularly bad day and a funny effort to try and cover up, his foibles and qualities too, to be honest, in order to give us something that could possibly be popular. Why bother? So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.